Oh, yay!
Good evening, everyone. Those who are here, those who are coming. I just want to say thank you. Um, when I posted that our esteemed guest was coming on, everybody's like, oh my God, it's so timely. And people are angry about the continued police shootings, the continued police brutality, and the oppressive nature of police in this country. So, Sonia Pruitt, Captain Sonia Pruitt,
Hey.
want to thank you for coming. I appreciate it. I know that you're being tugged on all over, but I'm really appreciative that you kind of take some time to come and talk to us. So we'll be talking about law enforcement, race, defunding the police, and how to reimagine law enforcement in this country. So, Captain, I'm going to call you Captain even though you're retired. Can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes. Hello, everybody. So I am a native of North Carolina.
Hmm.
I ended up at I went blurry. See, that's the devil trying to step in and do stuff and mess with me. Been trying to mess with me all day long. Come on, camera. Here I am. I had 2 calls last week, and as soon as the camera came on, 2 interviews, and I started talking.
It blurred out.
No, my one time the electricity went out.
Oh.
And then the second time it just froze. I was like, the devil is just busy with me, trying to shut me up. I'm not shutting up. So I'm originally from North Carolina, and I came to the DMV, the District, Maryland, and Virginia by way of Howard University. Hey, you. And so, and so I wanted to be a doctor. I ended up being a police officer. I don't even know where the connection is, right? Except the whole people thing.
Yeah.
I was a police officer for 28 years, and I retired as a captain, as the first Black female captain in my police department, which was Montgomery County, Maryland. So that was an interesting journey.
Yeah.
And now that I am on the other side of that journey, that particular part of the journey, I am now, I guess, social advocate. Uh, I work in a lot of circles on police reform and criminal justice reform. I teach at Montgomery College in Maryland in the criminal justice discipline. And my goal and my mission and my purpose is to ensure that, in particular, the Black community understands the history of our community as it intersects with policing, so that our community members can be empowered with the information instead of kind of trying to guess, am I right? Are these really my rights?
Yeah.
I'm here for that. So that's why I created the Black Police Experience.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. I was laughing because I remember meeting you. I met Sonia at Congressional Black Caucus Legislative Weekend, and she was a part of a panel, and I was just pissed. And I was like, why are all these cops always just sitting down not doing anything? And you schooled me because you were talking about the fact that there had been instances where people had spoken out and they went out on calls and nobody else responded to back them up. There was a fear that you could be killed if you ruffle too many feathers. And you basically explained to me what the barriers are for good police officers trying to do the right thing. Would you care to elaborate on that for our listeners, our viewers?
Sure. So that's very real. You often hear Black officers, especially, often hear, why aren't y'all doing anything? But that's a bit unfair because you don't know what Black officers are doing. How would you know? Nobody's broadcasting that. As a matter of fact, they're trying to keep it on the down low, and they're trying to shut you down on the inside. They want to keep you quiet. Don't let her speak. Don't let her out. Don't promote her.
Yeah.
Because the farther up the rank ladder you go, the wider your audience is. So there is a concerted effort to not only not hire us in the first place, but if we manage to get our foot in the door, to either force us out, make it uncomfortable for us, keep us tamped down. And you're right. In my case, there were threats against my family. In my career, the fear that people are not going to back you up and probably don't back you up. I had that, but not so much.
Yeah.
For me, it was more of a, just making it uncomfortable for me to exist. And even sometimes by my superiors. So I have a particular affinity for Black women and what they have to go through, because then we have to add an extra layer, a couple of layers of things. The fact that we're women and that we're Black, and the sexism, the sexual harassment, the misogyny. I mean, it is a lot, and it's compounded microaggressions and trauma. It is really difficult to navigate unless all you do is just go with the flow. And there are Black officers who do that, and I'm not mad at them, really. I can't be mad if you're trying to survive. But I would prefer that Black officers understand our power, just like our Black community seems to have understood in the last couple of years. We got voting power, we got economic power. Black police officers have power too if we choose to stand together. So that's the short of the story. It is very real. You can probably Google right now and find a story about Black officers, somebody being discriminated against, and even high-ranking Black officers. There's a lieutenant who has a lawsuit against the St. Louis Police Department right now for discrimination. I'm sorry?
Is that the one that they beat up?
No, not him. Oh, yeah. And see, he was a detective, got beat up by his fellow officers working undercover, went to court, and they acquitted all the officers. You don't hear about white officers being killed by friendly fire. You hear about Black officers getting killed or shot or beat up by their white peers.
Just before we came on, you were talking about just how exhausting all of this is, and one of the things that I've just in the course of my work and talking to folks, the anger, the frustration, the bitterness, the trauma, because one of the things I had to stop doing was watching the George Floyd trial, because looking at the video, seeing most of the people breaking down, and just the anguish and stuff, and so I just paused for a while. Where are you at? Where's your head at? How are you feeling as we're juggling the George Floyd trial and the shooting death this weekend of Dante Wright?
So first, I'm gonna have to beat you up, Barrington, for calling it the George Floyd trial. It's the Derek Chauvin trial. He is on trial. He is definitely, and I did that with love, of course.
Yeah, of course.
He is definitely, he should be on trial. This trial, its effect, it will be long-lived, because first we have the Black community and our allies who are watching closely to see if justice is going to be served. Okay.
Yeah.
After so long. And it's not just about George Floyd, it's about all the other Black men and women who have been killed in the custody of, at the hands of, at the knees of the police. So people are watching. This trial also has the probability of pushing police reform just a bit further, because we've gotten a tutorial on use of force, training, policy, that maybe the community at large has not thought about in depth, and how in depth it really is, and that we need consistency across the board, not just in these small localities or a city. It needs to be national reform.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, when it was passed, it doesn't have the teeth that we need, because much of what you want in police reform is going to have to be done by states.
Okay.
And that's part of the problem, because there's going to be differences from state to state still. There's so much Supreme Court case law that allows things like pretextual stops.
Yeah.
We just saw the video of the lieutenant from Virginia who was totally abused by the police.
Yeah.
And there was questions about why are they asking him out of his car?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the Supreme Court said that they can, but just because you can doesn't mean you should, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And but it's going to take state legislation to keep officers from stopping people for a tail light and then trying to get in their car looking for drugs that don't exist because they think all Black people use drugs or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's going to take state law to change the pretext. I'm sorry, the asking a person out of their car,
mm-hmm.
presumably for safety.
Yeah. For who? For the police's safety?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
So I wonder, does the political will exist, whether nationally or at the state and local level, for change? Because I mean, just a mere idea that the conversations that have been ignited because of George Floyd's murder about whether to defund or not, it just kind of goes all over the place, you know.
I think that everyone had good intentions when we first started this whole police reform conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I also work in some groups, and you haven't quite asked me about this yet, but I have my tentacles in different areas, and there are people who are like, let's just abolish policing altogether.
Yeah.
We don't need these police forces, and if we do need them, we can just start from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the answer is, but I can tell you what I do know is that we ain't moving fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that politicians are going, to some extent, the public's going to have to drive the politicians who drive the police leadership, who drive like accountability.
Yeah.
Because right now we don't really need any more policy. We be hashing out, oh, let's change this policy and these rules and this training. We got all we need. What we need is accountability.
Yeah.
What we need is some courage. We want people, the police leadership to say, okay, you did something wrong and this is your punishment, and it was heinous enough for us to fire you, or whatever we got to do to get you to leave here. Unions are in the way. So somebody needs to take the power away from unions. And Maryland just passed their Justice and Policing and Accountability Act, and they've abolished
unions.
I'm sorry.
They curb the power of the unions
by abolishing the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights.
Oh, yeah.
But still, who's going to make sure that these things are followed up on? Yeah. Who's going to hold those people accountable?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we hiring police chiefs who, like the police chief from the shooting of Dante Wright, talking about she made a mistake or she had an accidental shooting, talking about the officer who shot and killed him.
Yeah.
And that when they asked him about the uprisings,
mm-hmm.
he basically was like, I'm only protecting, he didn't say only, but he says, I'm going to protect the peaceful protesters. So does that mean you're not going to protect the other people? That's the mindset that my officers, we need to keep our officers safe. What about the people?
Yeah.
Who's keeping the people safe?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the things that, I'm noticing, other people are noticing, but nobody's really addressing. Mm-hmm. They just, oh, well, he's the police chief. He gets to resign.
I saw him at the first press conference and it was like, wow, he was like really pissed that people were asking him hard questions.
That dude handles the press conference like a straight clown. Okay, I mean, I'm just like, where is the and then he left.
Yeah, he just left.
I was like, did he leave? He
He
left.
just told him he got better things to do.
And there were still questions. And then when he came back, he had an attitude like, are y'all gonna ask me some more questions? Well, I mean, you know, I'm here now, and what is it you want to know? And I'm gonna take my questions one at a time. They were beating him over the head, by the way. I loved it. I was like, get him.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know who the woman was who was like laser.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started crying, and I said, you know, dude, I am the most compassionate, empathetic person, but these crocodile tears,
yeah.
I'm just not interested in right now. What I want you to do is be fired. And I want the city manager to be fired. And I want the officer to be fired.
Oh, so I guess they must have heard you, because they fired the city manager and he and that woman quit.
Yes. Well, that is different. See, quitting and firing are two different things.
Yeah,
they got to resign.
Yeah.
So, you know, keeping their pensions. I'm sure she has a pension because she's been on for like 20 some years.
26 years, something like that.
And who's to say she won't go to another police department? And they will hire her knowing what happened. Oh, girl, we giving you blue grace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we know that was a mistake.
Grace?
Yes, blue grace.
Mm.
That's when you do something and they can't find it. Since we're on the subject, I need somebody to tell me where are they hiding the bad apples, because I keep hearing police leadership say, you know, we're going to get rid of our bad apples. Mm-hmm. Well, where are y'all looking for the bad apples at? Because I don't see you pointing any out. There's like a bad apple secret hideaway cellar somewhere where they hiding the bad apples and you can't find them. And you know, so where are these bad? I need you to identify what a bad apple is to me. I see a question here about how do you define policing? While we're defining policing, can we define what a bad apple is? What does a bad apple have to do in order to get squashed or taken out of the cart or picked off the tree or stomped on or burnt or smashed? What do we have to do to find these bad apples?
Yeah. It's just, to me, it's just like a whole bunch of talk, a whole bunch of rhetoric. And what just really insults me the most is that, you know, in the midst of our pain and trauma, they're talking about sit still, don't say anything, just keep quiet, you know. And I don't know, I continue to have these conversations with people, and it ranges from reform to picking up weapons. Because a lot of folks are saying, yo, we've been trying to do this for all this time, right? Where we march, we go to the legislature, we talk to folks, and nothing's happening. So what I want to ask you is, you know, a lot of times I've talked to folks who say, I'm going into a particular organization to change it. Is that even possible if you decide to go to a police department?
I think, yes, we are not there yet. I mean, we even have police departments in this country where the majority of officers are Black and they have the same issues. Yeah. And so that's saying that we're not doing a very good job on the inside, changing from the inside out. And as a matter of fact, you can tell by the way they treat Black officers how they probably treating people in the street, right?
Yeah.
It is, the racism is deeply entrenched. The minimization of vulnerable people is deeply entrenched. Mm-hmm. It is a part of the fabric of policing. Mm-hmm. And this gentleman, Alton Drew, you asked the question about how do you define policing? That's a great question. I have a class, and I had it today, and we were talking about community policing, and I said to them, you know, there is a people are trying to, when we talk about police reform and they're talking about bills and stuff, mm-hmm. they want to have a definition of community policing. I find that to be difficult. I think there's some characteristics like empowerment for the community and partnership. So just when you talk about policing, I think it depends on who you ask. I know what it's meant to be. where we are looking to find the bad guys that obviously are as elusive as these bad apples. Because why is it that, what are we doing? What's all this energy around traffic stops and trying to get into people's cars and stuff? And that doesn't lower the crime rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. You know what lowers crime rates? When you have great relationships with the community.
And they'll talk.
Yes, that is proven. The statistics are there. I mean, you can't deny it.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we are still doing the same stuff where we are treating people less than or like not much at all. And then we're calling it policing. Well, that is a great question. What really is policing? And I'm glad you asked that, because now I'm gonna put that on my list of things to ponder and talk about. It's just the same thing as what is public safety. If you're supposed to be in charge of public safety, why doesn't the public feel safe?
Well, a certain part of the public feel safe, like them fools that ran up to the Capitol on January 6th, right? They were pretty sure the police wouldn't do anything to them.
So you bring up something else, and I know we just jumping over all over the place, but listen,
right.
when they asked the chief about, because he made the point yesterday, the chief in Minnesota, what is that, Brooklyn Center?
Brooklyn Center, yeah.
Yes, he made the point. He made it a point to say, we are not going to stand for looting, rioting, blah 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 blah. And when they asked him about that statement, that's when he pointed out, we're gonna protect the peaceful protesters. Now, who said that at the Capitol on January? Was he that upset, I wonder, about January 6th?
Probably not.
Because that was a show enough riot.
Mm-hmm.
And they were doing more than looting.
Yeah.
So
they put a hurting on police officers. The police officers that Blue Lives Matter.
You know what? In policing groups that I'm not really a member of, but I be trolling. They don't want to talk about it.
Really?
They try to avoid that, like it didn't happen. That rewriting of history that we're accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, it happened, lady, it happened.
Yeah.
It happened, and we're not gonna let you forget it. And so, I'm gonna jump back to something else about what you said to me when we first started. About, I told you I was exhausted. I'm just tired of having to watch the trial, and that clown that they had on the stand today that didn't even do his homework, didn't read the autopsy report, but yet wants to talk about how George Floyd should have been comfortable on the cement like that. I mean, just craziness, right?
Yeah.
But some of us, not all of us, have to watch, because we have to bear witness.
Yeah, to what's going on.
You have to, so that there will be an accurate accounting of history.
Yeah.
That we pass down from generation to generation. If we don't watch, we mess around and they'll change the whole trial around.
Mm-hmm.
So someone has to watch. Someone has to report on it. When they ask me questions about it, I want to be able to speak knowledgeably. So I have to watch it. But I have to tell you that it is increasingly difficult, especially since the defense has started his case.
Yeah.
And Dante Wright was killed.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, there are like 18,000 police departments in the country.
Mm-hmm.
There's no overarching policy, programs, procedures. So how do you even begin to talk about reforming, reimagining law enforcement if everybody's doing their own thing and there's no, like you said, there's no accountability, no responsibility? I mean, someone like Timothy Lerman, who killed Tamir Rice, he left the police department he was with and went somewhere else, and it was like, like you said, Blue Grace. They just said, "Come on in."
Because to them, he didn't do anything wrong, which is why I say, well, who are the bad apples?
Yeah, yeah.
There's some officers who don't think Chauvin did anything wrong. They were like, well,
they articulate that. They articulate that.
Yeah. Not my friends.
Okay.
Again, I be trolling, so I can jump in and say stuff and mess with them.
Yeah.
But and until they block me.
Mm-hmm.
But they like, what they want to say is that N-word wouldn't comply. But
Yeah.
this whole compliance thing, Black people should comply. If you comply, if you comply. But we see people who comply and still die, like Philando Castile.
Yeah. Yeah.
We see people die and they don't even get a chance to comply, like Breonna Taylor. And then why are we held to a different standard? I mean, why don't the police comply with their policy and training? Since everybody wants to comply, why don't y'all comply with that? And then we won't have to worry about all of this. Where was Officer Potts or Potter or the young lady who?
The one that's
I don't even know if she's young. The woman who shot Mr. Wright.
Yeah.
Did she comply with her training? Is anybody talking about her compliance?
But even the whole thing is just so ludicrous because I've fired guns before. I've held a taser before because I used to be a cop reporter for like 7 to 10 years. And it's like, there's no way you could pick up a taser and think it was a gun.
You wear it on the opposite side of your gun hand.
Yeah.
It's a different weight. It is the handle's larger. It's a different color. And so let's just, let's play devil's advocate here for a minute, since he keep messing with me. Let's just say she drew her gun instead of her taser. Like that actually happened, like a mistake. Let's just say that for the sake of the conversation, not because I believe that.
Yeah.
How are you so frantic and distracted and out of your mind on this type of stop that you would draw the wrong weapon? Where was your head? Why were you were you frightened? What were you frightened about?
He was, but the young man wasn't a threat.
No, he wasn't. And you had all those officers there and they were all ready to put the handcuffs on him. So, I mean, hands on is a great thing. I love it. Now, when he jumped in the car, the option is that right there, disengage.
Yeah.
Let him drive off. How old is he? 20 years old? Where is he going?
Yeah. He's gonna
leave the country?
He's gonna go home at some point.
He's gonna go home, y'all. He's gonna go home. There was no sign that he had a weapon.
Yeah.
So let him go. And we got his tag number. We know where he lived. We know his name. Because we ran his information. They said he had a warrant.
Yeah.
So they have all of his information. Why not just let go? The blue ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't let go.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have another man who has lost his life for no good reason.
No good reason. You think she's going to be going to be charged?
Listen, I will tell you, if they know what's good for them, they're going to charge her. I don't know whether she'll get convicted, but she's going to be given a lot of grace.
Why? Because she's a police union president?
Well, there's that.
And a white woman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
I believe that. When you work for 28 years in the police department, you see who gets grace and who doesn't.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting point. Just as an aside, that white women are discriminated against too. But when it comes to comparing them to the rest of us, they're going to get grace before we do.
Rachel is asking, is it policy to yell taser, taser, taser?
It depends on where you work. Where I worked, yes.
Oh, so you would?
Mm-hmm.
What, to get your folks out of the way?
Yes, because the reality is, officers tase each other, they pepper spray each other, they hit each other with batons. I mean, so you want to say something to get them, to have them be alert of what's going on, and don't be getting in the way.
Yeah.
Did you put any of these things up?
No.
I'm just asking. I have to mitigate some circumstances.
Robert, Bobby Shaw, Barrington, please ask the steps we need to take when stopped by police. Things that would give us a better chance of getting home or to work alive. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I have traffic stop. He was the one who was trying to de-escalate.
Yeah.
And he did a great job. I said they should hire him. Okay, he kept his head. Yeah. You could tell he was frightened, but he kept his head. You got to keep your head in the midst of all of that noise and ego and all that stuff that's going on. Secondly, do not be afraid to ask for a supervisor. Now, I'm saying that, and you might get a supervisor who's just as bad as everybody else, but at least ask to have someone. You never know. Somebody might show up and be like, what are y'all doing? That would be me. That would have been me showing up on the scene. What's going on? What are you doing? I'm going to say follow directions. I need people to understand that you don't have to follow unlawful orders, but know that if you don't, that there could be consequences in this, since we're in this place, this space right now.
If you don't follow unlawful orders, you're saying?
You're not, they say, and that there's that mystical, they say that you don't have to follow an unlawful order from the police, but see, when do you determine whether it's unlawful? While you're in the midst of things, or would you rather wait until after everything is done and then file your complaint, file your lawsuit, get an attorney, all of those things? I say to you, think carefully about that, but I would just follow direction as long as it's not something that's going to put you in a really untenable position. That's hard, especially, when you're trying to maintain your dignity. But to the extent that you can follow instructions, yes, the police can ask you out of your car. Okay. So if they ask you out of the car, don't argue, get out of the car. You can ask them why. They should articulate that. But if they don't, you can, hey, why are you asking me out of the car? As you get out of the car, why are you asking me out of the car? But for heaven's sake, if you got a cell phone, turn it on. If you can get, I would, what I've told people, if I'm gonna get stopped, I'm gonna turn on Facebook and just,
leave it on.
Yeah, just leave it on.
You like Facebook video?
Yeah, do they still do live? Look, I'm looking now. Yeah, you just hit Facebook Live real quick. Because somebody's gonna hear it, and even if some officer were to take your phone and smash it or cut it off or whatever, there's still a record. You can't make that disappear.
But doesn't that, because with Corinne Gaines, they got Facebook to cut off.
Did they? That's why I was asking.
Yeah, to Facebook Live.
Okay. Well, I don't know what the other option would be, but you better start recording and hope that they don't get hold of your phone. If you have a phone where you have a code to lock your phone, then so like my phone, I can start a recording, but I can turn the phone, I can hit a button and make the phone go blank, right? But it's still recording. So they would have to force me to open up my phone, which I probably would never do. They could break it, but that recording is going to still be available. So just think about those things. And you know what? I hate having this conversation, but it's real, right?
We're trying to get home too.
You're trying to get home. So anyway, you follow all the instructions, turn on your phone. If you got a passenger, tell them to turn their phone on. Tell the passenger, I need you to be quiet. If they ask the passenger out of the car, they, passenger they got to get out of the car.
Look, I have two children. They're 26 and 27 years old. My daughter is an adult living with autism, and my son used to drive her to school, and I used to tell them both, I gave you these phones. I always have them charged. You're driving alone. You're driving without me. You turn that camera on whenever a cop stops you. I don't care what it is for. And my son is a rap artist and all kinds of stuff. So he travels in packs. I don't ever see them going anywhere by themselves. And
good. That's another thing. Yeah.
You
have young people.
Yeah, and they are a diverse array of kids. There's white kids, there's black kids, there's Latino kids. And I told them all, we have these talks with them on a constant basis. I'm terrified every time they walk out the door. And I think about it until they walk back in the door, and that's like right now, that's the best defense that they have, is to turn on these cameras if anything happens. My son's
Mhm.
been arrested twice. One time he was arrested and we didn't know where he was for a whole day and a half. They wouldn't tell us, and then they said, we don't have any charges, we don't have that person here, we don't have this, we don't have that. And I was like, I work at Prince George's Community College, and at the time I had just started there. I was like, I am getting ready to come over with my county employed camera crew and start just filming outside of your police precinct, because I don't know where my son is. Somebody needs to give me some answers, and you can call me back at this number that is PGCC-TV. And I know I wasn't supposed to do that, but I need to know where my kid is.
That's right. That's your babies, and you're gonna do those things.
Yeah.
And then you know what? And then you're making me think of some other strategies, like pay attention as much as possible. You might be feeling nervous, but try to keep your cool. Pay attention to the officer. If they have on a name badge, get their name, what they look like, what kind of cars they were driving, what kind of uniforms were they wearing, were they in plain clothes. Those things are really, 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 really important, so that when you get ready to, and what time was it? What time is it? Where are you? All of those logistical things are important when you want to file a complaint. I used to work in internal affairs, and I would hate it when people would complain, and I'd be like, okay, give me information, and they wouldn't have anything because they were so nervous. Which brings me to my last point. Be empowered by asking questions like the ones you all are asking tonight, audience. Be empowered, understand what the law is and what your rights really, really are, so that you won't be so as scared, because I in my mind, I know what they can and cannot do, and I'm going to use that against them.
But my best friend and I were in Miami. He got stopped. He asked the cop why he stopped him.
Mm.
They had an exchange, and it wasn't even like a rancorous exchange. And the dude told him to shut the fuck up. And he said, "But I have my rights," and he handcuffed him and took him to jail.
Yeah.
So most of the time you ask questions, they don't want you asking questions. And if you think
that's a bad apple. So we've identified a bad apple. Huh?
Yeah. And if you think about the whole idea of them talking about uppity niggers, then the mere fact that you challenge those fragile snowflake egos means that something untoward could happen to you.
Yeah. So I probably would fill out the lay of the land.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would never say I know my rights.
Yeah.
I just know them. They don't have to know. And as a matter of fact, it pisses people off when you tell them, I know my rights. Like, okay, well, then this is what I'm going to do. Just keep that in your head. I know that he or she cannot do this. I know that they don't have any reasonable suspicion to search my car. And so when they ask me for consent, I'm going to say no, because if they had any measure of real suspicion, they would search the car without asking you. They're asking you to get your consent. And so say no.
Yeah.
Now, if you say no, they may get mad and try to find a way to search your car anyway. You just don't know. And I think that some of my previous co-workers will see me on television now and they're pissed, right? Yeah. Some of them are like, yes. And then some of them are pissed. And the ones that are pissed think I'm somehow selling out.
Yeah, the blue.
But guess what? I was black before I ever wore a uniform and that they call blue.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And I have a desire to see people, all people, and this is not an all lives matter, Black Lives Matter piece, but everyone should be treated with dignity and respect, and everyone should go home safe and sound and alive. And that means Black people too. Yeah. Okay. We want to go home too, safe and alive.
Yeah.
And so if you all don't understand it, don't see it, okay, peace out. I don't even work with you no more.
Yeah.
But why can't you see that that's what the ask is? And now it's become a demand. So, police leaders, politicians, people, what are we going to do about it?
Mhm. So my friend Laura is asking, have you seen any positive examples of improvement from the inside out? And are there any particular programs you've seen that are promising?
She think of that face.
You know, Laura, we need more than a program. I don't even we need like a purging or just, just
like a dismantle.
You mean like starting a fire? Because I've been saying burn the whole goddamn thing down.
I mean, fire is cleansing, right?
Yes.
It's purifying.
Yeah, it is. And I don't know of any program, the whole law enforcement community is good at like coming up with programs.
Yeah.
I ain't seen a program yet that has stopped systemic racism, inside or out. I haven't seen that program. I've just seen individuals who are willing to stand on principle and do what's right. That's the only program I know.
Mm-hmm. So where do we start? Because I get so pissed off. I'm like, I'm tired of talking, and I'm tired of all of these goddamn conversations. Every time they kill one of us, oh, it starts a national conversation. And most of the time, if you say what you really believe, or if you say what really exists, then folks get all pissed and shut down and all that stuff. So where do we start?
I think we have started. We started like 400 years ago, but I guess we still starting, right? I think that right now in this moment that we can't let up off the pressure. I think that with the death of George Floyd, bless him, you can't unsee some stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's some people already trying to rewrite that history, but there's a lot more people who are like, gosh, the blue tentacles are strong, and they, let me tell you how I know. So when George Floyd was murdered, and Black Lives Matter protests all over the country, and you saw police officers going out and they put up their fists in the air and they got on the knee and put the knee with the community, and they might have actually been feeling it, right?
Yeah, for the moment.
But a couple of weeks later, the unions was like, if you don't get up off your knees and get back to what we do, and the majority of them got up off their knees.
Wow.
Why is the union so powerful?
They've been allowed to become that monster and that beast through collective bargaining.
I'm a union man, and I hate the police unions. I haven't seen one police union that's worth a bucket of spit.
Look, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's another mystical character.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that.
It's like,
especially on a national level, like the National Fraternal Order of Police and the National Association of Police Officers, and those, they are, I need them to show me their bad apple policy, because I know they don't have one.
Wow.
And if you got bad apples who are leading stuff, I mean, man, okay.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna write a book called The Bad Apples.
You should.
Oh, that's like a great book.
It's interesting.
I'm almost that The Bad Apple would make for a great film. We need to talk.
Andrine's question: should there be rules that govern whether they reside in the communities they serve? That's a part of community policing, right?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I talked about that with my class today too. So I'm all for, they call them different things. Like they call it the Officer Next Door program, residential officer program. I actually benefited from that program when I was a younger officer, and I actually had an apartment. I didn't have a house, but I had an apartment in my beat. in my district where I worked in Silver Spring. By the way, I love Silver Spring. Oh my God, it's the best place in the world to work. But I had an apartment. I did not pay any rent. My job was
You're a police officer?
I was a police officer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it wasn't in the best of Silver Spring neighborhoods, but I like my people. So I was cool. It was heavily Latino and Black. And my job, I would ride through during work. I would stop at home, maybe eat lunch, check out, see if everything's okay, check in with the rental office. And, are there any issues, any people I need to know about? I even put together a little newsletter. They didn't ask me to do that. I just wanted to do that. Put together a little informational newsletter about safety and stuff. And I was there for, several years, saving up money to buy my first home. And what prompted me to leave was that there was a tenant who was just a bad actor. He was involved in a lot of felonious activity, and they would not evict him
because his rent was on time.
Were they afraid of him?
Probably. And one night I came home. He had a little nephew, a little cute little boy, and they were at the basketball court. And as I was driving past, he told him to do the little gun.
Oh, to you.
And I was like, I think it's time for me to leave. So I decided, if the rental office wasn't going to do anything about him, I couldn't do anything about him, and I didn't want to put myself in a dangerous position. Yeah. And so I left. But it was great, and I liked being there for my community, and it worked out for me as well.
Years ago, about maybe I'd say about 20 years ago, there was a special program through the Department of Housing and Urban Development where police officers and teachers would be able to get foreclosed homes for half of the price that they were putting them out for. So I mean, I bought my house at whatever cost that they had my house at. I wasn't a teacher then, but I don't know if it still exists, but I do know that the presence of a patrol car, or police car in the driveway of a home on a continuous and constant basis ups the value of the rest of the homes in the neighborhood, and inspires some form of security. And I thought that it was interesting that they had it for both teachers and police officers.
So you actually bring up a good point, because where I worked in Montgomery County, Maryland, housing prices are pretty high. And so, that kind of priced out a lot of police officers, especially younger officers, which is why they would move to the surrounding area. That, in addition to the fact that they really weren't trying to hang out with Silver Spring folks. Okay. They weren't trying to hang down south. They was, trying to go to Frederick and Damascus and stuff. But part of it was the fact that, some people just couldn't afford to live in the county. So you got to make it affordable for officers to actually live in the places that they work.
I've been here so long that Silver Spring used to be part of Prince George's County, which is really, really interesting.
Well, look, so when I moved to where I live now, I ain't gonna tell y'all what it is, but it's in Prince George's County.
Yay!
My neighbors, I live in Laurel. My neighbors, so we were one of the few Black families in and I live in a very modest neighborhood, but at the time when we moved in, we were one of the only Black families. And I'll never forget, I don't know if anybody has watched the series Them yet.
No.
Okay, the horror series.
Yeah.
And the white neighbors were standing out in the road watching the Black neighbors move in. That's what happened. When we pulled up to the house, they were all standing outside our house.
What?
And I was like,
wow,
why are y'all here? And they was like, oh, we just wanted to meet you. And one of them told me, we've been thinking about trying to secede. He said this, secede to Montgomery County. Because we're proud to board.
Yeah, Laurel and Silver Spring had one. Laurel and Silver Spring and Tacoma Park all wanted to succeed to Montgomery County because Montgomery County, while they have a different tax rate than Prince George's County, it's actually lower than Prince George's County. Taxes are lower than Prince George's County, but you get taxed for different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real interesting.
It was interesting to me. I'm like, y'all better get out of my yard.
Yeah. Carly asks, why don't police seem to understand mental health crises? And why didn't I'm sorry. Constantly, he is the grammar police in this house. He's the captain of the grammar police.
Oh God.
Why does it feel like they don't spend the time needed to de-escalate?
They de-escalate when it's white people.
Maybe we should go to the next question. It was okay. So I love this question, Carly, because I contend that the police are trained to be concerned about the police. You can see that playing out in real time now with the Brooklyn Center police chief, who talks about, I got to keep my police officers safe, right? You can see that in the Derek Chauvin trial, when the expert witness they had on the stand today talked about making sure officers stay safe. You hear that a lot. And in training, you hear it a lot. You have to go home. Rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. There is a definite emphasis on police lives, not the lives of the vulnerable, such as people who are experiencing mental health crises and who we have also seen dying in interactions with the police.
So isn't that a good reason to defund the police and take that money and put it in social services, mental health services, and that type of thing?
I'm not against that. As a matter of fact, I contend also that because the police work for the public, it's just like any other job. If you got an employee who's not doing what they're supposed to do, you can demote them, you can fire them.
Thank you.
You know, you can decide not to give them a raise. I see, I see it the same way. So if the public is not satisfied with the product that you're delivering, with the service, with how you interact with them, then they can take your money. I'm okay with that, honestly. I don't think it's like a big. And listen, police departments have been getting defunded for since time untold. Every time you have to battle, and in Montgomery County, there was always, some pushing and shoving about the money. The education piece in Montgomery County is well funded as opposed to the police department. That's not that way in every place, in every jurisdiction.
Very true.
And so, if the police department lost some money,
they'd be okay.
It was defunding. They just didn't call it that.
Yeah. Well, I almost choked on my coffee when I was reading about some defunding stuff last year, and they said that the New York Police Department gets almost $10 billion. What the fuck are they doing with all that money?
Yeah, and
because they're not serving us.
It's not going to any kind of good programs that benefit the community that they are policing. They're not training them or giving them any kind of access to some form of de-escalation training. I mean, we both work at a college. We have career professional and development day where the whole place closes down, and you go in and you get trained in different things that you want, and as part of your training, as part of your contract with this school, you are obligated to have some professional development because you're teaching people how to do stuff and how to be a police officer or how to be a television producer or how to be a broadcast journalist. All of these things that you're teaching people how to do, and the police are responsible for the safety of our bodies. They're not responsible for the buildings. They're not responsible for the roadway. They're not responsible for anything other than our safety.
But that's not true.
As citizens.
That's not true.
But that's what the marketing material says.
What do you think, Barrington? What do you think the police are responsible for?
I saw, in the course of some research, I saw this huge debate between different factions of police departments and researchers and policymakers and stuff. And I don't remember where exactly it was, but there are laws that talk about them taking care of the property before they deal with the people. Wow. And I was like, what the hell? Because and so for me, that plays out that someone calls and says, this man just gave me a counterfeit $20 bill. They're more goddamn concerned about the fucking money than about his life. Because they
weren't even concerned about the money.
What were they
concerned? They just weren't concerned about his life.
Okay.
It could have been anything. He stole a candy bar.
Yeah.
He's selling CDs.
Yeah.
He's selling Lucy cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It can be anything. It's not the item, it's the work, the lack of worth and value of the people that you are coming into contact with. And that is something that police are not trained on, and there's no focus on that.
Can you train someone out of their racism?
I don't know about that one. I don't know if that is ever. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But that is an introspective coming to Jesus moment for anybody who's a racist. Mm-hmm. That I got to look at myself and realize that I got this problem. It's just like when we for those of us who have taken advantage of therapy. Mm-hmm. There's a huge emphasis on your self-realization and actualization.
Thank you.
You got to come to the moment yourself. They're not going to tell you what is wrong with you. They're not even going to frame it as you having something wrong with you. You're going to have to come to a realization of what's holding you back, what's getting in your way, what's making you have high blood pressure and be stressed out. Those are things you have to come to on your own with some guidance.
But this country's been at various, well, not even that often, but every now and then, the mainstream of this country are kind of poked a little bit to come to some sense of how they think, what the consequences are of their policies and programs. That ain't changed nothing.
Well, it's not. There's no consistency. There's no commitment. Mm-hmm. So that's missing, that commitment piece by the very people who can actually force change. For instance, I'd like to know where Mr. Biden is on all this. I haven't heard him saying anything.
Mm-hmm. About
I heard him say no looting.
Oh yeah, they always say that.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was like, "Yo, dude." I mean, respectfully, Mr. President, dude. Did you? Okay, when? Okay, a man has lost his life, sir, and I want you to really reflect on the next words that you say, because the people who are tremendously hurt by this for hundreds of years really ain't that concerned about property.
Yeah.
They're concerned about life.
But the thing for me that is just really aggravating is that these instruments of the state continually use violence against us, but they tell you not to use violence in response. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's part of the safety net. Oh, we got to keep ourselves safe. Those other people, we ain't worry about them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's real. It's deep.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer. I just, I think everybody has a part to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so people need to figure out what their part is.
Yeah.
I have not ever been invited to be a chief of police. I was invited to be an assistant chief after I retired. But I'm like, where are the people who want to come get me to be the chief?
Yeah.
They're not knocking my door down. Girl, come on. We need. I have a lot of fans who are like, you should be a chief.
Yeah.
But they can't make me a chief. So I'm like, okay, why don't y'all want me to be a chief? Because.
But you're a troublemaker.
Not ready for what the real. You gotta be ready.
Change things, and they don't want to change anything.
I know, and so
they like it the way it is.
I mean, yeah, it's comfortable. It doesn't affect you until it affects you, and so we have a whole lot of work to do. I think that, like for instance, there's a question here about Maryland. I don't even believe that we don't have the same deep racial issues in America. We have the same ones that everybody else have in this. Maybe you are insulated from them somehow, or you don't see it. But yeah, we got some deep-seated racial issues in Maryland.
Go to Prince George's County Police Department.
Yeah,
because them goddamn rogues, they've been killing us and doing stuff to
They
us.
have 15 Black and Latino officers who have filed a federal lawsuit against Prince George's County and the police department.
Yeah.
For discrimination and retaliation.
And retaliation.
One of those young ladies who is a plaintiff in the lawsuit, and this isn't even part of the lawsuit, it's just something that I know about her. As a young officer, she was sexually assaulted by one of her partners.
Oh, wow.
In the Prince George's County Police Department. And instead of them appropriately disciplining him and firing him, they tried to make her work in the same district as him. This is real stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, there are some deep racial issues. And she was Black and he was white.
Oh.
Yep. I've heard this story through the grapevine because at the community college they do have a police academy.
They do?
Well, they train security officers.
Oh, okay.
They have a cohort, a public safety cohort or pathway, so to speak. But I don't think that Maryland is any different than other areas of the country. What is different in Maryland, or let's just say Prince George's County, because I believe that Latine lives in Prince George's County. What's different is the population and the education of the population that we have here. I'm originally from Venezuela, but I grew up in South Florida, and the difference in the Black population in South Florida and the Black population here is a level of education and just this South northern
yes,
person experience, that the Black experience is very different than it is in South Florida. I mean, when I came to Howard, I was there ain't no way I'm going back to live down there in Florida because y'all are smart. y'all are about some things.
Florida's special. Florida's special.
And I, while I love the sun and the surf, I can't stand the stupid. So, that's just, I can't. And I think that that's what the difference is here. Just the population. I always like to tout that Prince George's County has the most educated and the highest average median income of Black people in the world at the moment. So we live better than 99% of all other Black people across the world. And we need to recognize that here and support it with things like the Black experience or Speak Freely with Barrington Salmon. I'm going to find this someplace else.
Well, you know what's interesting? I was just thinking about it. When I was in South Florida, I was in Miami. I remember one night my boys and I were going to a party, and we drove out of my parents' driveway, stopped at a stop sign, and we're trying to figure out where to go. And this cop came up, lights and everything, and he was like, "We blew the stop sign," and we were like, "We ain't do nothing." And he said, "You got an accent." I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Where's your green card?" I said, "My green card's at home." And he said he was gonna arrest me because I'm supposed to carry my green card all the time. And I told him about his mother. And luckily,
why are you still alive?
Luckily, but it was like, and I have had so many run-ins with cops. I was crossing the street one day in Miami. This Cuban cop was directing traffic, and he ran over to me and he was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Go back across the street." And I was like, "Who the fuck you talking to?" And me and him nose to nose in the goddamn street, and my best friend grabbed me. I should be dead. So so you, encountering you, talking to you, listening to you, you have helped me to change the animus that I have for police officers. Because people would always say, "Oh yeah, they're good police officers," and I'm like, "Where are they?"
They're out there, and you know, they're out there, and some of them are struggling. So we need to pray for them first of all. I have a young. I'm sorry, go ahead, Barrington.
Is there? You said they're struggling. What can we as a community do to help them?
Yeah, that's hard because you don't know they're struggling unless you know. Okay. And only since the murder of George Floyd and the incident at the Capitol, the riot, the insurrection at the Capitol, have people really been paying attention to what Black officers have had to say. We've been saying this for years and years and years and years. Like, look, ever since about in the 1970s, when Black officers started to organize and form organizations, that's when the voices became the loudest. But after that first surge of like lawsuits and, you know, attention, you know, and Black officers started getting promoted and getting comfortable a little bit. Yeah. you know, people stopped hearing us. And so now just recently, you know, people have been mortified, or some people, that what's his name? Eugene Goodman, the Capitol police officer who got all the accolades. You know, him and his fellow officers who were Black being called the N-word.
Yeah.
But why would they be surprised?
I don't think that they were so much surprised as just like, here we go again with more trauma.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, it just highlights with our reality, and everybody else got to see it too. Like, okay, they've been telling y'all, and so now, you know, people want to tell us about your experience. We've been telling you that this is what's happening, and no one has been listening.
Yeah, there was a Black guy who was on MSNBC the other day.
Yeah,
a Capitol police officer, and he said that the amount of times that they called him the N-word, I don't mind saying it, but you know, in the interest of being in polite society, I won't. Although I said it earlier.
You're speaking freely.
I said it earlier, but the guy was like, every other word was nigger. And people were like surprised. And I was like, why are you surprised? Yeah. I've walked on the street and passing people I don't know who called me that.
I've walked in DC and have heard, you know, coming out of or going into during Trump's presidency, I've heard people actually say, "I didn't realize there was so many niggas in DC." I'm going into the American History Museum with a class of little Black children, my little first graders. We're going into the American History Museum, and I said, and I hear this, and I look at them, and I was like, I didn't realize there were so many racists coming to visit. And they looked at me like I'm like, I'm just a substitute.
Yeah, you know, the first time I was called nigger was in the 3rd grade.
4th grade.
And it was one of my fellow students, his father, a white boy, his father was I grew up in a small town, so his father was a doctor, well known, you know. They lived on the side of town where all the big houses were. We were both waiting for someone to pick us up from school. Me, my grandmother, him, his father. And he called me a nigger. And I'm gonna tell y'all what, I didn't really know what it meant, like what it really meant. I knew it was wrong though.
Yeah.
And so I whipped him that day.
Good.
And when his daddy got there and my grandmother got there, he just brushed him off and put him in the car because nobody wanted to mess with my grandmother. She was like Medea, right? And then, but fast forward to not too long ago, and I got called a nigger.
Really?
Yeah. And people get real comfortable.
Yeah.
And they don't really know you. Because people don't, people see me on TV, they be like, oh, she's so this, but that's really inside of somebody else.
Yeah.
There's a little alter ego in there. And so, to be called that, it was in the airport. This is right before, the pandemic and stuff. And I'm sitting, waiting for, I think we're about to board. And I actually sat down next to a woman, and she was looking at me like this and leaning real hard.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at her, and she looking at me, and she said, I don't know where all you niggas come from. And I was like,
I don't know where you. Oh, right.
I said, me neither. Where are they? And then she got up and left.
You should have.
But there's this visceral response when you hear that word.
Yeah.
And people want to have you ignore it and act like, oh, it's just no. I'm not ignoring that.
No.
Because that comes with some extra stuff, like maybe she was one of the people who stormed the Capitol.
Yeah. I have a good response for them, but I won't repeat it.
Because when I was younger, I would have been swinging on her and wouldn't have cared whether I caught a charge or not, but I've grown out of that just a bit.
Yeah. just a bit.
My first N-word experience in this country was real interesting. It sounded a lot like yours, but I didn't get a chance to whip the kid. It was fourth grade, and he called me the N-word in class, and like you, I didn't know what it meant. So I went home and I told my Trinidadian Venezuelan parents, one of whom my father was a Garveyite. I told them, I was like, what does nigga mean? And
did he jump up out of his chair like, what?
No, interestingly enough, my mother jumped out of her chair. Who called you that? I was like, Paco Garcia.
You still remember his name too, okay?
Don't talk to that boy no more. I don't ever want to hear his name, and I don't ever want you using that word towards anyone else. And if he call you that again, have them call me. And my father was like, that's an ignorant person, and the stuff is coming from their parents. Demand an apology. So I did whatever I did. I don't even remember what happened, but fast forward to 6th grade, and the kid, Paco Garcia, Mimi has forgotten the whole N-word incident, and it's 6th grade, and Paco decides he's going to have a nighttime party. And, you're 12 when you're in 6th grade, and it's like, oh my God, I got to go to this party. And, the best dancer in the class, I had to go do the hustle in front of everybody at Paco Garcia's party. So I asked my mother, not remembering can I go to this party? And she was like, whose party is it? Paco Garcia. And I tell you, you can't go to that. You don't know why. I don't even want to discuss it with you. Right?
Mommy's got long memories, man.
Not happening. So Friday, Mimi's scheming. Mom's at work. Mom used to work in a restaurant, manage a restaurant. She worked on Friday night. She wasn't coming home till 11. I was going to be home by like 9 o'clock. So I asked Daddy when I get home, Daddy, can I go to this party with my friend Max? Max's mother's coming to pick me up. Sure, go, bye, have a good time. I'm in the middle of the dance floor in the little Florida room, dancing to Do the Hustle. Dun, 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 dun. I have a boyfriend, Alex Rodriguez, and Alex is like spinning me on the dance floor and stuff. And I hear from the street, because it's screamed in, Mimi, what the hell are you doing in these people's house? You forget they call you nigga? By this time, I'm red, music stopped, everything's like, oh my God, and my face is like this. And so, you know, she walked me out of there and she was like, you'll never have, I don't ever want you having the chance for these people to stand up and look at you and enjoy your dancing or enjoy anything of ours. Mm-hmm. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And my two friends, my best friends, my best friend Max and my boyfriend Alex were like, we going in solidarity with her. So we all left the party.
Yeah. Well, you know, I had an experience in the police department. Black officers were given their own little name. Instead of calling us niggers, they called us codes, CODES. That stood for Code 1, which is the designation for Black people, like when you're writing a police report or filling out a ticket.
Wow.
And nobody ever actually called me that to my face, but yeah, that was the word they used for us for a while until we figured it out and was like, okay, let me hear you say that again.
Yeah.
And then they probably did it behind closed doors or in secret.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Do you think that Chauvin's going to be convicted?
I hope so.
Okay.
But you know, with the history we have in this country and the fact that all they need is some reasonable doubt, I don't know how they could ever doubt what they see with their eyes, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they have to have all 12 of those people agree. Yeah. And there's one or two on there that may not.
Well, this when they were going through jury selection, I read about this Hispanic man who's now a juror, who when Eric Nelson asked a question, he said, well, you know, if George Floyd had complied, he'd be alive. So I bet you money that son of a bitch will be the one that says not reasonable doubt.
And he complied.
And they allowed him on.
And at the end of the day, he complied.
In so many ways, we're not given the same grace as other people. We got to comply. Police don't have to comply.
Yeah.
We can't show or verbalize our fear, articulate our fear.
Or your anger.
Or your anger, but the police can, right?
Yeah.
Even in this trial, they're bringing up George Floyd's history in interacting with the police, really? But we don't get to hear about Chauvin's.
Yeah. Chauvin's 19 complaints?
Or him putting his knee on the neck of a prone woman or the neck of a younger citizen. So.
And he shot a young man too. He kicked down some dude's door, and the guy said that they were wrestling in the bathroom and he shot him.
I've been saying this for years, that some of these cops and some of these cops with all these priors, they're serial killers. And I'm sorry, but the look on Chauvin's face when he was doing the look on this murderer's face, because I refuse to call him by his name, the look on his face was like he was literally enjoying and relishing.
Yes. And how do you unsee that as well? How do you not see him? Then, you know, the defense is trying to employ this, the crowd was aggressive and, they were distracting him, but he had his hands in his pockets.
Yeah.
He was empowered by their watching him do that.
Yes.
He was, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And
I believe that too. I do. I feel it's creepy to even think about, and even creepier to watch it.
right.
Mhm.
He looked like he could have been on a good episode of Dexter. He could have been on a good episode of Dexter. And the look, that's what got me, because that's the first thing I saw. I think I saw it like maybe 20 or 30 minutes after it had been put up. And I was like, look at this guy's face. I was just yelling at my phone. And
yelling at me.
And yelling at Barrington, like I can't unsee that. And I've seen that in my nightmares. And so that's a scary thought. I've seen that in my nightmares. My daughter's seen that in her nightmares. I'm sure that there are countless people that look like us that have seen that face in their nightmares.
Yeah.
And it is a trauma that we have to keep reliving all the time.
Well, the only reason why I'm not all the way over the edge is because I was a police reporter for 10 years. And the things that I've seen, I got this thick skin. And I mean, but it still affected me. It still affected me that a man who didn't fight, didn't resist, complied.
That somebody loved.
His daughters, his family.
Several people loved.
9 minutes and 29 seconds with that man's knee.
You know, I cannot, if the jury does not convict him, I have got to wonder about humanity. Yeah. Because there's no way you can tell me you watched that happen and you don't see his enjoyment, his derision for the people who were telling him to get up. How long he had his knee on his neck. And then the young gentleman, Mr. Williams, I think, said,
martial artist.
Yeah, who said he was doing a shimmy, getting his knee real comfortable in, in position. And if they don't convict him, then we already know that our lives are worthless to a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's but funny. That's going to send a message to the world if they don't convict him.
Yeah. Because the young man, that same young man, when he was on the stand, the defense attorney was trying to act like, you said you called him a bitch. Yeah, I did. You said you would kick his ass. Yes, I said I would. Like that's something unusual with the brutalization of George Floyd. And
just everyday business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Mm-hmm.
Sonia, do you have a website?
I do.
Okay, so I want to fix it. So tell me what it is. So I can.
The website is www.thereal REAL BPX. That's one word. TheRealBPX.com. I'm also on Twitter at TheRealBPX and Facebook. You can just look up the Black Police Experience on Facebook.
And she's always on TV. And she's in media around the world, BBC and other places, right?
That's right.
I love it.
Telling our story, trying to, make it
to balance things out. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody got to talk about it.
Yeah. True. What do you say, Mimi?
Didn't we meet Sonia at Charles Young's?
Charles Young.
No.
I'm sorry. Then I thought we did.
No.
Oh, who's Charles Young?
Charles Young was a colonel in the United States Army that I went to cover before I started working at the station. It was a freelance gig that I had. He was a colonel who was denied becoming a general because of racism in the early 1900s. He created the what was it?
I remember.
The all of the forestry. You need to help me out. You're
I don't
supposed to
remember.
remember these. I'll look up. I'll look it up right now. But we thank you, John Lists, for helping. John List, otherwise known as O.F. Makara. Do you have an opinion about the police woman's resignation statement? It bothers me that she did not refer to the murdered man or his family. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not surprised about that. If she has an attorney, the attorney has advised her to keep everything very general and brief.
And she was the head of the police union.
Right. So she knows not to say too much.
Yeah.
Because that can be used against her.
Mm-hmm.
And she ain't trying to have that used against her in a court case that may occur.
Yeah. All right. We thank you for this only just scraped the surface.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be very grateful if you would come back again.
Okay. The real BPX is one word. Don't forget, y'all.
Okay.
Oh,
that's okay, Mimi. I'm the only website out there with that name, so it's easy to find.
It's the let me fix it. I'm sorry. I'm waiting for the real popo.
I have an interesting story about the Black police experience. I had a major, I wouldn't call them a corporation,
mm-hmm.
a major entity approached me about an idea I had.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted to have me develop the idea as well as use the Black police experience. And then actually said to me, but once we do it, you're going to lose ownership of the Black police experience.
Oh,
no.
That sounds like a 360 record deal.
Yeah.
And said it. I was like, no, thank you.
He probably think you're stupid.
Sometimes
it was she.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, nah.
No thanks.
Yeah, don't do me like that.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for the work that you've done, because there have been different times when we've talked offline and you talked about some of the difficulties that you dealt with as a woman, and as a Black person in the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, it's good to just have a regular old conversation, and I like that we just talked about some random stuff too, because I need randomness right now with all that's going on.
Yeah,
we all do.
And when Miss Rona decides to take a break, we're gonna have you and the Deuces over.
Okay, they like that, especially if there's food involved.
Oh yeah, we always
for the bison experience.
Oh,
I know, right? Yes.
I'm driving him crazy.
No, it's now. Okay, because she was talking some shit too. Family ain't even really a school. That's not really. It's only Howard, and I'm like, shut up.
Oh, Howard, the Mecca. What a wonderful thing to fall up into, because I went there on a humble too. Like, I didn't know what I was doing at Howard.
See,
it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yes. My son applied to Howard, and I said to him, "Do you need help?" "Nah, Dad, I got this." I said, "I know these people. I can help you navigate." No. I spoke to the guy in the scholarship office, whatever the office is, where they give you grants and loans and stuff. He said that most of my stuff's gonna be grants and da-da-da-da. Shit. 2 weeks before he's supposed to come up, we're in Florida. 2 weeks before he's supposed to come, Dad, what happened? Yeah. The dude said that it's gonna be all loans. I said, okay.
Yeah, and we didn't get offered any money, at least not yet.
It's crazy. And then he said, we got to come up with $10,000 before I can start school. And I was like, you ain't going to Howard then.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
went to Tallahassee Community College and just frigged around for 2 years, and I was in his butt, and he was like, okay, I'm gonna fix you. He just called me and said, I just signed up for the Navy.
Wow.
So he went to the Navy when he was 19, and about maybe 8 months in, he called and said, Dad, thank you. And I'm like, for what? He said, because now I understand all of the stuff that you and Mom are trying to tell me. I have found a place that has offered me discipline and focus and all that stuff. And he's been for 10 years. He's been in for 10 years.
He became an officer 2 years ago.
Yeah. So,
congratulations.
And
yeah. When you have sons, that's an interesting.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
There's
Yeah, it
nothing.
is.
I mean, there's nothing I could tell my son because I don't know anything. You know,
Of course not.
Not a thing.
Are very stupid.
He said we're old.
And we're old. And you know, y'all are old.
And he got to take care of us.
And I'm coming to help you. But
and I'm like, I got you all right here.
He's only coming to help. He's only coming to help us when he needs something. The car.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, you love them and you raise them, and then you gotta let them go.
Yeah, I think I'm in that transition period right now with one, going one direction and the other one going the other direction. And I'm like, why am I feeling angst? They're the ones that got to work through that. So
well, you're always going to feel angst because Julian is 30.
And you still feeling angst?
Yeah. And Louis is 26?
25.
25.
Well, thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, so it doesn't change.
It doesn't change at all.
When they're feeling pain, you feel pain. When they're going through all their craziness, you wish you could take it all.
Yeah.
You know.
You will. I would do anything. To stop whatever pain. I'll stand in front of the. I'll stand in front of the bus. I'll take the autism for you. I'll take the panic attacks and the whatever is bothering you for you. The feeling doesn't change, and I sincerely understand what my mother went through because I'm the youngest of her 12 children or 13 children. And when when she used to say things like, what are you doing? Why aren't you calling me? What, wanting to know what it was that I was doing.
And you blew her off,
and
right?
I would blow her off and call her, a week later. I once drove across the country by myself and
didn't say a word
to anybody.
She's crazy.
Instead of calling my sister who worked for an airline who could have either put me on a plane or got on a plane and drove with me in my car back across the country. But I decided to go by myself because I was grown. And I arrived here and, I arrived back to DC because I was in Seattle. And when I got here, the first phone call I had at the place at my girlfriend's house where I landed was my mother was like, I know that you did something wrong because I haven't heard from you in a week. And I was just like, so, it doesn't stop. And I think I was about, 24, 25 years old.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
So are you getting payback now for what you did when you were young?
No, not really, because I didn't really start exploring until I graduated from high school.
Okay.
And my sons haven't given me any trouble. It's the growing pains that we've all had to have.
Yeah.
Especially right now during this transition period when we thought that they would both get accepted to Howard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now it's like, okay, now there's the thought, okay, I'm going to be separated from my brother.
Yeah.
And how are they going to, but it's going to be okay.
That happened to me because in Jamaica, you take the common entrance for a free scholarship to go to high school. And my brother never studied. And I kept on saying, Steve, you need to, yeah. I'm going to get to it. We took the exam. I passed. He didn't. And, when you win, they put your name in the paper. And we had all these people coming to the house. Oh my God, I saw Barrington's name. And every time they said that, Steve would start crying and run off. But that life lesson, because after that, if I would say, Steve, let's go play. No, I'm working. And he did. And he passed the following year. So that was the first time in our lives that we were separated. And it was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
What I did when I got into Howard was I did Miami Dade Community College for I think a year and a half. I had gotten into a bunch of different schools up here because I knew I wanted to come to school in DC. Didn't know anything about Howard. But when I came for the visit, I went to all the other schools like American and Catholic and GW. And we went to Catholic class and I saw Howard on the way and I was like, why are there so many good looking Black people here? Oh! And the cab driver was African and he was like, this is a historically Black university. And I was like, a what? Oh, can you drop me off, please, at wherever it is where I could apply? I didn't know that we had those, I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So they didn't take all of the credits that I had, but he could go to Montgomery for even a semester.
And that would probably help with my school bill too.
Yeah. It will really help. And they take like Howard has a deal with.
Yes, they have. It's like a feeder program.
Yeah, they have a deal with Montgomery College and
mm-hmm. Yep.
And
you are exactly right, Mimi.
Yep. I know my stuff. And then he could qualify for the Maryland Promise Scholarship. And
I didn't know about that. We're going to talk about that.
You need to talk to her.
Promise Scholarship is, I think Promise does the last dollar. Like if he needs more money, besides what he gets in the Pell Grant, he could apply for the Promise Scholarship. And I think that the Promise Scholarship does apply to your other son who got into Howard. So make sure that he applies for the Promise Scholarship.
Yeah, I've been applying for scholarships. Some of the scholarship applications are, I know we're not all the way off subject, huh? But some of the scholarship applications, I'm like, this is like filling out a whole house mortgage.
They want to discourage you.
Right? They want.
They cannot do it. Also, Sonia, call your local representative and see if the local representative to Maryland State Congress, like your congressman or congressperson or senator, Maryland State senator or representative has a scholarship. Most of them do. And even the county councils have scholarships as well. And,
okay. Oh, I didn't think about that.
I am giving you some resources that you need to be checking on.
Yes, let's hook up about that.
I don't mind. I do this all day long. That's all I do for PGCC, and I know that across the state there are dollars available for.
Mm-hmm. And we need those because I got to.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also Southern Management Leadership. Southern Management has a leadership scholarship that they do, and they cover half of your tuition at community college, and then if you go to University of Maryland, they cover 55% of community college and 50% of Maryland. You have to maintain a certain GPA, but that money, they also include classes and a mentor that is a leader in whatever field they're studying in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Julia, okay. When my son was in Florida, they had something called Bright Futures.
Yeah.
And they paid 75% of your tuition.
Yep.
So I think they have an equivalent here.
They do.
Okay, so
Yeah, and Montgomery
That's
County might
that's
have a
free money.
Montgomery.
That's free money.
Montgomery County may also have a Montgomery County uh, Promise Scholarship as well, because there's a
They
Maryland.
do.
Okay.
I know that from working with at the community college.
Okay,
Mhm.
good.
But they do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I'm give these babies some education.
Yeah.
I love
yeah.
your. I love Montgomery College's president. She's the bomb.
Oh my God, she's so my hero.
Yeah, I love her.
She's a wonderful, wonderful leader.
Yeah, she really, really is. We admire her, and we just got a new president as well. I love our past president, but we got a new president as well, and our president came from Florida. She's fantastic.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, people. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, everyone, for coming through and listening.
Thank you all.
Asking questions.
Questions and comments. We appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to invite the good captain back again.
Yeah.
And now she knows how we roll. It's feeling. It's not all. And can you tell us how? It's very relaxing and very freewheeling.
I appreciate that. I need some of that.
Yeah. Okay.
Because sometimes I find when they're stiff, I'm stiff. I'm like, I need to loosen up a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
I've seen you on a lot of stuff, and I'm just like, Sonia, just kicking it. You know, like some of your answers are so on point that sometimes I think they don't know how to respond to you.
Right, because they'll be like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good, because one of the problems with journalism is that all they got to do is hear somebody else carry a certain thread a certain way, and they're so unimaginative. They're like, I got to ask her the same types of questions. I got to see if I can get the same type of answers. But the beautiful thing about Sonia Pruitt is that they're going to ask you some shit that they thought some other person was going to say, and then you drop a bomb, and it's like, oh shit.
Is that what the reaction? Because I'd be like, sometimes I'd be thinking, was I okay? Because they look like they got a little like, oh.
No, they're not used. They're not used to anybody like you who's been in law enforcement for so long, being so honest. Because I'm telling you, one of the things about, as someone who covered law enforcement for 10 years, they speak without saying anything. They have their general terms and their quotes and stuff. They don't say shit.
Yeah, I hear that, and it's all to protect.
Yeah.
But I got this thing about the truth, and if I do God's work, that I will be rewarded, and maybe He'll come through with some money for these two boys.
That's coming. That's a prayer and a wish of the ancestors that this happens for those boys, that this happens for all of our children to get the education they need and deserve.
And there's a guy in Jamaica who said he don't want no goddamn pie in the sky. He want his ham where he am.
On that note, right?
That's where we are. Give all of us everything that we're supposed to get now.
That's right.
And then when we go, we can deal with that there.
That's right. I agree totally.
So, Bobby, are you gonna?
Yeah, I'm
Mimi, Bobby, Mimi's gonna. The ticker had her information.
I'll put it in right now. The real without the space.
But it already has that. The ticker already has that.
But now it's in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So that they can.
And what was your Twitter? What was your Twitter handle again?
@TheRealBPX.
Okay. You can put that one too.
Okay.
I wasn't even looking at the comments. I was just looking at the stuff that's flashed on the screen. Y'all special. You got all kinds of little stuff going on. Okay.
That's me. Mimi loves all that stuff. I just sit in front of the camera and talk, and Mimi does all the production stuff and all that stuff. So
okay.
So it works. It's complimentary.
At the Real BPX.
Yes, follow us, especially on Twitter. We be on Twitter starting stuff. So
I gotta start checking you out because I love listening to you, and it's like, oh, there she go again.
you know, I say stuff sometimes just to see what people gonna do, right?
And they take the bait all the time. Like, oh my God.
I like messing with people like that. Like, let me just see what happens if I say this.
But the funny thing with her, you know, she have all these thirsty dudes trying to.
I'm still waiting for my true boo to reach out to me every time I'm on TV. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get my root. He gonna find me and he gonna send me a message, and it's never him.
I'm like, oh, I saw you on Facebook.
And yes, and then I get some weirdos and stuff. So
and now that you're out, now that you're a media personality, you're gonna have all them crazy people trying to talk to you.
Okay, well, he out there. I'm waiting for you, boo.
Okay, so
He's
good.
out there.
I hope he's listening. Erica
Hey, Erica
is amazing. Erica, I don't know. Did she found the Black Empowerment? But she's a head cook and bottle washer for Black Empowerment,
Black History and Empowerment.
History and Empowerment.
Oh, wow.
And I have learned so much. I fancy myself, a reader and stuff. And Erica be finding some stuff, and I'm like, fuck.
Yes, this good stuff right there, and good conversations and dialogue.
Yeah. So, and I love anytime stupid, guys get real stupid and start feeling themselves, and she just check them. She's like, I know you ain't coming here with all that. I'm like,
as though they don't know what's coming. It's like y'all didn't know that was coming.
They didn't. They don't because they're not that bright.
So we need to have a speak freely with Miss Erica.
Oh yeah, we do.
That's a good idea.
Erica, you're invited
to speak freely. And Alton, we need to book you.
Yeah.
And Rachel Torgoff, you need to come on.
Pasta Fazul, come on.
Pasta Fazul, you need to come
on.
on.
Oh, Erica's just laughing. You better do more than laugh. You better say yes. Come on. Because there's so much for us to talk about. Anyway, thank you, my dear. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to end with, like, yesterday, I don't know why, but it was a hard day. And last night I came home and I wanted to, I was like, I want to kill somebody. I'm really, really mad. We need to talk about this with someone, but we didn't know what we were going to do. And then we were driving to the airport to pick up our niece, and late, and he said, I got Sonia, and I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. And so, when I got home, I was too tired to promote it. But I'm really glad that Barrington set it up. And,
I had to do that because
got us ready. So thank you.
I don't want the good captain to tase me. But
no, I mean, Barrington asked. Of course, I wanted to accommodate. So
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you. It's healing and comforting to have these conversations with people that are on the inside, that look like us. It's empowering. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep up the good fight.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
And I have a feeling that you are channeling your grandmother like crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, she would be so proud.
Yeah.
She was a no nonsense kind of lady.
I know your grandma and my mama hanging out with.
Yes, definitely. Mine with a switchblade.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother segment right there. Okay, the switchblade.
I used to always walk in London at night with his 2x4. Because he said the teddy boys, they used to shave their head and wear steel toe boots and stab any black people. And it was so funny because I was talking to some Caribbean folks in London, and they said, man, you Jamaicans saved us. I said, why? They said teddy boys were terrorizing black people, beating up men, women, and children, stabbing them, kicking them to death with their steel toe boots and the cops weren't doing anything. And my father went to London in 1950, and he and his boys, they were like, okay, we're gonna fix this. And there were pitched battles on the streets of London, and they beat the shit out of these dudes, and they finally said, okay, we done. And they just left black people alone.
Yeah, London has an interesting history. That's a whole another
Yeah.
show for you. I have some comrades,
Yeah.
peers who in policing, who have retired, some who are still active in the UK. So
Yeah. But people keep on thinking that, you know, the Queen and tea and crumpets, that's some bullshit. Because all the racist bullshit that we're dealing with here started there. But it's just real subtle. Because they'll be telling you stuff and you don't even know because they're so proper.
Well, I guess we can ask Meghan Markle now, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, you know
she found out. She got a real lesson.
Yeah. She found out the hard way.
Yeah.
But you see, for me, everything that's happened since COVID started is revelation time.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff that they were hiding and acting like, you know, you guys, you know, because I had people saying to me, why are you so overly sensitive? I said overly sensitive because you are doing the things to me and people that look like me, and they would always dismiss it. Now nobody can say that they didn't. Nobody now can say they didn't know. Trump was a seasoning to help people understand. They can't pretend that they don't know what's going on anymore.
Yeah, he was the bitter pill.
You know, and so.
Yeah.
So,
okay, people, I gotta roll because
say hi to the deuces, please.
I'm starving and tired. But
and please get some rest.
Yeah, say hi.
I'll let the deuces know.
Yeah, and we'll talk soon. Mimi will link with you to give you more scholarship information.
Please, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah,
you know,
I'll send you some links and stuff.
Since we can't pay you, we'll barter.
That's payment enough.
Okay.
Thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll end